Inside America's Boardrooms, the informational show for board members and corporate secretaries. Brought to you with Knowledge Partners, Diligent, PwC, Center for Audit Quality, Spencer Stewart, the Conference Board, and Corporate Board Member, along with content contributors Equilar, Meridian Compensation Partners, Wilson Sonsini Goodrich and Rosati, Donnelly Financial Solutions, and the Society for Corporate Governance.
Welcome to this edition of Inside America's Boardrooms. I'm TK Kerstetter, the CEO of Diligence Boardroom Resources and the co-founder and editor-at-large of Corporate Board Member Magazine. It's my pleasure to welcome you to the show. We're filming here in the Conference Board Studios in New York, and today we're going to be talking about our disruptive times ahead for the boardrooms of public companies. And who better to have these kind of debates with than my colleague Doug Chia, who's the Executive Director of the Conference Board Governance Center. Welcome, Doug.
Thanks again, TK. Great
So
to be
one
back.
of these days we'll give you well, this is a pretty easy topic when you really think about it. So I don't feel I'm putting you in any too difficult situation here. But
I'm game.
yeah. So there's some interesting things that have happened that have the potential, and I'll use that word potential to really be rather disruptive in 2019. So let me start with the California legislation and the diversity quotas.
Sure.
People don't like the word quotas, but that's certainly what it is. And it's interesting that they were silent on people of color or age or any of the other factors. And I expect that we're going to see some legal challenges and whatever to that. But that's taken diversity to its most severe form, of change. Not new to other parts of the world, other areas have done it, but certainly a shot across the bow in the U.S. So again, going to be challenged. Probably the U.S. Chamber or the Business Roundtable plus other legal things will do that. But first reaction to that, and will we see states, if they're successful, will we see states follow?
Well, I think that, the idea of quotas, I actually think should not be such a, seen as such a kind of an offensive thing. I know in the United States people really have a bad reaction to it, but this demonstrates that if corporations don't start to really deal with this issue and try to promote more women on boards by themselves, government will start to take over. And so California is it will be an interesting experiment. It's actually how the US federalized system should work, and why corporate law at the state level is a good thing. Let's face it, this quota is not onerous. It is about the easiest quota that you can have, and if you can't put one woman on the board by the end of 2019, it's pretty sad, and getting fined $100,000 is, I would not consider that, really coming down hard on companies. So, it is a way to show companies that states will get in the game, and that other states probably not too far behind California. So it's a wake-up call for corporations.
Yeah, I'm in the non-fan category.
Yeah.
Because first of all, I think I'd rather have investors, take charge of that, and rather than the quotas. I just don't like the concept.
Yeah.
I don't think it's been terribly successful in other countries. With the, some women ended up serving on 8-9 boards just to meet this. And listen, no one has been a bigger supporter of diversity than I have in all the things that I've done. I just think that there's different ways, and I'm pleased that at not the rate of progress, but certainly this year with the withholds and the votes no, that there's been progress. So anyway, we'll have to watch, because there is no question that if this passes through, we could see something happening at other states or even the kind of push on a federal level.
Yeah, absolutely.
So that actually looks meek
Yeah.
to Senator Warren's proposal, okay, which asks for federal chartering, which who knows what else might be in that, but she wants to take that, a lot of that out of the state's hands and put it in the federal hands. But maybe the most controversial part of what she proposed was 40% of the board would be elected by the employees of the corporation. So again, not something new internationally in the sense that Germany has administrative boards where employee representatives are represented and whatever. And this really isn't asking for an employee representation, although that may be what it ends up happening. But that, when you look at chairs and committee chairs and all the things that could be disruptive, that could be about as disruptive as anything that we've heard recently.
Yeah, I mean, I think Senator Warren's Accountable Capitalism Act would really restructure corporate law and corporate formation in the United States and have large implications if it were passed as is. You know, you would have the federal government creating a bureaucracy to, I guess, regulate companies of certain sizes. That bureaucracy would be housed inside of another corporate bureaucracy. And so in terms of companies and their decisions to go public, their decision to grow or to split up, you know, now you have this size factor in terms of, okay, if I get to a certain size, there are real implications. I'm going to be regulated by the federal government. That's a total game changer. In terms of representation on the board and ownership by employees, the institutional investors, basically, it would dilute their ownership and their voting power by 40% overnight. So I can't see investors, many of which have big presence in Massachusetts, supporting this. So the way I look at her piece of legislation proposed is, to me, it's a concept piece in terms of, hey, here's where I, Elizabeth Warren, think we need to go. And it's a very populist message. It's a very kind of old school Democratic Party way of dealing with things. And I think it's part of her platform for an eventual run for the presidency. But I think this is also one of those wake-up calls to corporations that I think we knew would eventually come. You know, you had Sarbanes-Oxley, then Dodd-Frank, kind of federal government creeping into corporate law, and then, you know, Elizabeth Warren's proposal is kind of the next logical step of the federal government really taking command of large corporations. You know, to me, it's kind of weird that they focus so much on large corporations. I mean, the bigger governance issues are at the companies that are much smaller, and you have, you know, it's harder to influence those companies. So, I think she's on the wrong track here. If her goal is to solve income or wealth inequality and shareholder primacy, I don't think this legislation is designed to do that, but certainly the message is on point.
Yeah. So I can't believe that states would be very happy about this either. Don't they enjoy the ability to be able to structure, you know, stuff within their own state?
Yeah, I think this would create a real constitutional challenge in the courts, more so than the California legislation, which I don't really see who would challenge that. I think the public relations optics of challenging more women on boards, you know, I just don't see that as a winner for anyone. But but in terms of the federal government taking control of what has been state domain, state corporate law for, you know, centuries now, is a serious threat to the states and would create some kind of a constitutional challenge under the 10th Amendment or otherwise.
Yeah. Well, we're going to use up our time here, but I mean, there's still other things. I mean, there's ESG, okay, which still is floating all over the place. Everybody wants to get some order in that. We've heard institutional investors say it may make sense to splitting up the letters, you know, E, S, and G, make it easier to manage. It makes more sense. Interestingly enough, in California again, we saw with CalPERS, they had elections and somebody ran on the platform that, you know, it's not about political issues, it's about return on our investment. They ended up being elected, which would be unusual that a union person would run on that platform, but in the end, they have a budget deficit. Other states do too, and they're worried more about return than political issues at this point. And then we have cyber, okay? Another company gets hit, you know, with this. It just seems like that's it. So, you know, the potential's there for some real upset, okay? Or, as we say, disruptive times. But I think the most is what's going to happen with Warren's legislation.
Well, I think with CalPERS, you know, what you're seeing is that the investors themselves have to worry about disruption, and in this case, it's really disruption from within. You know, I think up until now, investors saw themselves as the disruptors of the way corporations and boards are doing business and kind of, you know, shaking up business as usual. But now you have this element of you know, someone coming in and trying to shake up CalPERS, one of the largest, if not the largest, public pension fund in the country, with a long history of corporate governance advocacy. And so that should be a big message to all institutional investors. I think ESG I don't think that'll be split up. I think, you know, the trend will continue now that the major passive or, you know, large asset managers are stressing ESG from a risk mitigation point of view. I think that's only going to continue in that direction. A lot of those firms are changing their corporate governance departments, you know, renaming it stewardship, so it takes on a different connotation, more towards that ESG connotation. So I don't see that reversing to kind of trying to deal with each thing individually. I think the philosophy now is that, you know, all of these things are so intertwined. Sustainability and governance are really converging, and that's really the way of thinking going forward.
Well, however it comes down, there will be no shortage of topics for us in 2019, although we still would be happy with a sort of more moderate playing field, if that's what it ends up being. And Doug, this is also our last show of the year. First of all, I wanted to thank the Conference Board for being our host. And I think I speak for the Conference Board, and I certainly do for Diligent and for Boardroom Resources and all the sponsors that we have for Inside America's Boardroom, that we wish our viewers a happy holiday and a joyous new year. And we look forward to bringing you more and interesting topics in 2019. So we will see you next year.
Join us again next week for Inside America's Boardrooms, brought to you with Knowledge Partners, Diligent, PwC, Center for Audit Quality, Spencer Stewart, the Conference Board, and corporate board member, along with content contributors Equilar, Meridian Compensation Partners, Wilson Sonsini Goodrich and Rosati, Donnelly Financial Solutions, and the Society for Corporate Governance.